From the Cronkite studios in downtown Phoenix, this is Cronkite News.
A look at the solutions in place to keep Arizona children who age out of foster care from living on the streets.
Plus, why cities across the state are getting rid of or cutting back on their recycling programs.
And Playground Paradise, how a local charity is looking to promote physical education at a Valley Elementary School.
Cronkite News starts now.
Good evening and welcome to Cronkite News on Arizona PBS. I'm Madison LaBerge.
And I'm Daria Yasmin. Thank you for joining us.
Tonight, we're diving into child foster care in Arizona to see how some people are jumping at the chance to remedy problems in the system.
Those from the outside and the inside, our government are looking to get involved.
A new program between the Maricopa County Sheriff's Office and the federal government could provide much needed help for teenagers who are about to age out of foster care.
Cronkite News reporter Ellie Nakamoto-White is live at the Cronkite News digital desk to explain how it works. Ellie?
The idea is to make the transition for these teens much smoother as they go from living in foster care to living on their own. Officials say that for some, the first step to being a successful adult is to have a stable living environment.
I guess within the foster care system, we don't see each other as peers, but as more as family, since that's what we had to work with.
20-year-old Angel Martinez has been in Arizona's foster care system since he was 14. He calls himself one of the fortunate ones.
Luckily, I was one of the lucky kiddos to go and get into the foster system, since I was one of the few that actually got into a good group home.
And that can be critical for foster youth like Martinez. The Arizona Department of Child Safety reported in August of 2019 there were roughly 874 foster care children between the ages of 18 to 21. However, those who work with these young adults say that number can get even higher.
In Arizona, we have about 950 young people each year that transition out of foster care over the age of 18 who do not have a permanent family.
When kids turn 18, they either have an option to stay in the system on a voluntary basis or leave.
But we know right now at least 50% of the 950 youth that are leaving foster care leave, right at age 18 because they're tired of the system, they're tired of adults telling them what to do all the time, but they might not have the skills and opportunities that they need to be stable as an adult.
This can lead to many of them walking away without a permanent home.
And we know that generally in the nation and in Arizona, about 1 in 4 youth who transition out of foster care experience homelessness.
Beth Rosenberg says there is a solution through this new program.
We are going to give you housing vouchers, Sheriff's Office. Now our next step is to figure out how to get that out to youth.
The process for this initiative is to work with the housing authorities to make sure that they apply.
Ishan Peterson was in foster care herself and knows how difficult it can be to transition out of the system. That's why she started Onward Hope, a nonprofit child welfare agency that is partnering on the housing vouchers program.
A lot of people don't like to rent to young folks, but this is a population who is resilient and who have grown and who are wanting to work on themselves and be productive citizens.
For those like Martinez, new programs like these will hopefully serve as lifelines to a better future.
To see that the youth, the younger heads that looked up to me within the group home probably as an older sibling, it's good and comforting to see that, okay, cool, now that they have that extra footing for them for as they leave or age out.
Officials say this is the first step in improving Arizona's foster care system. Youth can start applying for the houseless vouchers now. Live at the digital desk, Ellie Nakamoto-White, Cronkite News.
Developing now, a lawyer for an Arizona elected official charged in 3 states with facilitating an illegal international adoption scheme says prosecutors have miscast his client as a human smuggler. Attorney Matt Long says Maricopa County Assessor Paul Peterson cares deeply for the birth mothers from the Marshall Islands, whom he connected with adoptive parents in the United States. A judge in Phoenix delayed Peterson's arraignment yesterday until after an October 29th hearing in Arkansas, where he faces federal charges.
The Senate has confirmed the nomination of Arizona business leader Barbara Barrett to be the next Secretary of the Air Force. The nomination was briefly held up by Connecticut Senator Richard Blumenthal, a Democrat who wanted Barrett to promise she'd prohibit stays at Trump hotels for the Air Force business. But the Senate voted 84-7 last night to clear the way for a vote. Barrett is only the 4th female secretary in the history of the Air Force. Arizona Senator Martha McSally reacting tonight saying, quote, Ambassador Barrett's confirmation is a win for Arizona, our Air Force, and our nation. She's the perfect fit to lead the Air Force in these dangerous and uncertain times. In September, McSally voted in favor of Ambassador Barrett's nomination in the Senate Armed Services Committee.
Former State Department Senior Advisor Michael McKinley testified today that he repeatedly asked Secretary of State Mike Pompeo for a show of support for the ousted U.S. ambassador to Ukraine, but was greeted with silence, according to 2 sources with knowledge of his testimony. The sources also say that the decision to not offer the ousted ambassador support was a key reason McKinley decided to resign his job last week. McKinley appeared this morning before the 3 committees leading the impeachment investigation into President Donald Trump, which are probing Donald Trump's call with the Ukrainian president. Much of McKinley's testimony focused on internal dynamics at the State Department, which previous witnesses have told lawmakers were upended by efforts to go around normal channels, to push for Ukraine to open an investigation into Vice President Joe Biden and his son Hunter Biden. Most everyone in Congress seems to support the Land and Water Conservation Fund, which is used for state, local, and federal park lands.
But liking a program and funding it are 2 different things. Now Congress is being asked to put its money where its mouth is, as Heather Cumberledge reports from our Washington bureau.
National parks attract millions of visitors a year, each of whom comes away with something different. Arizona resident Corey Harris says he came away with a new direction for his career.
It was actually a national park here in Washington, D.C. that actually inspired me to switch careers.
And Harris says the parks are particularly important to veterans like him.
Having monuments and national parks to go to gives those veterans that chance to feel like they're a part of that home.
That's why Harris joined others on Capitol Hill recently to push for guaranteed funding of the Land and Water Conservation Fund, which pays for state and federal parks. LWCF has been around for decades, but needed to be renewed every few years until the spring, when Congress voted to make the popular program permanent. Arizona Representative Raul Grijalva calls LWCF one of our country's most successful recreation and conservation programs, and it's critical that we take action to protect it for generations to come. Now the fight is on to make sure there's always funding for the program. A House bill would guarantee $900 million a year for the fund, and taxpayers don't have to worry about paying more, since the LWCF has long been funded by offshore drilling royalties.
When there is offshore drilling on federal waters, it is using up a resource that belongs to the American people. So it's appropriate to take a small amount of that and put it towards land conservation for lands that are treasured by and really important to the American people.
The bill would also clarify how the money is to be spent. Since its creation, the fund has collected almost $41 billion, but Congress has only allocated about half of that. And Gardner says the money is urgently needed.
The American public should not be shut off from the places that they own and that provide for so many opportunities for learning.
And opportunities for so much more, Harris says.
Symbolism matters, and there's nothing that's more symbolic than a national park.
The bill is awaiting a House vote, but with 223 co-sponsors, it should have no problem winning passage. In Washington, Heather Cumberledge, Cronkite News.
The 4th Democratic Party primary debate of the election season took place in Ohio last night, with a record of 12 candidates competing to be the next commander-in-chief.
It was the largest debate ever held on one stage, with the candidates facing off on every issue, from impeachment to health care to gun control and foreign policy.
Massachusetts Senator Elizabeth Warren ended the night with the most speaking time by far, with nearly 23 minutes of the spotlight on her. Former Vice President Joe Biden came in second with just over 16 minutes of speaking time.
Every single candidate on stage declared their support for the impeachment inquiry into President Trump. The night had intense debate moments over universal health care and the president's Syrian policy, among other topics. We also saw Vermont Senator Bernie Sanders making a comeback after surviving a heart attack just over 1 week ago.
In my judgment, Trump is the most corrupt president in the history of this country. It's not just that he obstructed justice with the Mueller report. I think that the House will find him worthy of impeachment.
South Bend, Indiana Mayor Pete Buttigieg went on the offensive during the debate, joining Minnesota Senator Amy Klobuchar in coming after Senator Warren for her Medicare proposals.
Your signature, Senator, is to have a plan for everything, except this. No plan has been laid out to explain how a multi-trillion-dollar hole in this Medicare for All plan that Senator Warren is putting forward is supposed to get filled in.
The debate was a first for businessman Tom Steyer, who managed to make his debut appearance alongside the night's other candidates. Hawaii Congresswoman Tulsi Gabbard also made the stage after failing to qualify for the last debate.
So we want to hear from you now. Who do you think won the Democratic debate Tuesday and why? Just go over to our Cronkite News Facebook page to join the heated debate. Even though we are still more than 380 days away from the 2020 election, but strategists are already considering dollars and cents of the race. Fundraising numbers filled with the Federal Election Commission's revealed the shifting financial fortunes of the Democratic presidential candidates. Senators Warren and Bernie Sanders led the Democratic field, raising just shy of $50 million. Former Vice President Joe Biden raised about $6 million less than his collections in the last quarter, according to the report.
Meanwhile, Arizona Congressman David Schweikert campaign finds itself under a money microscope after a new report reveals his campaign is in debt. At the end of September, the five-term Republican had less than $150,000 in cash, dwarfed by the over $600,000 raised by Democratic challenger Hiral Tipirneni. Schweikert remains under a House Ethics Committee investigation for allegations of misspent campaign funds. Tipirneni said her fundraising advantage was in part to the congressman's ethics probe and loyalty to the president.
Coming up next on Cronkite News at 5, the future of recycling.
What scaling back on recycling programs could mean for Arizona communities.
The political debates might be heating up, but so are our temperatures. Which one will make you sweat more is hard to say. I've got your weekend forecast coming up in just a few minutes.
As journalists at Cronkite News, we report on stories that matter to you by focusing on the local impact. We dig deeper and work tirelessly to keep you informed.
Live in Wickerburg.
Live in Los Angeles.
In Cleveland.
In Washington. In Louisville.
From Jerusalem.
Live in Philadelphia. From around the world to right here in Phoenix.
At Cronkite News, we report the facts and stick to the truth.
By the year 2050, there will be more plastic in the ocean than fish. Before Professor Halden, I had an insane amount of passion, but I almost felt helpless because I didn't know how to use it. Professor Halden gave me a chance to make a difference. Being at a place like ASU allows you to take these big leaps. Ultimately, the biggest problems in the world cannot be solved alone.
The City of Surprise is the latest Arizona community to suspend its recycling program.
Cronkite News reporter Jordan Evans explains why the costs are getting so expensive.
Recycling is a part of our everyday lives, but did you know that some of the materials you're actually putting in this bin are costing your city money? And that's why cities across the valley are cutting back, if not suspending their programs, because the problem is getting expensive.
So he'll get that material and he'll push it back and up.
When you recycle items such as plastic water bottles and aluminum cans, they end up here at recycling plants across the valley. But not everything you put in your recycling bin makes it into these bales. Instead, they're ending up here.
The problem is more with people putting too much waste in their direction. Pretty much of all plastics ever created, only about 9% has truly been recycled. And most of it ends up in the landfills. It's meant to last a long time, it's durable, it's inexpensive, so that's why it's created on such a massive scale, and it's just been increasing since the 1950s.
So when non-recyclable materials are fed into this facility, it comes at a cost because all of your items are sorted manually.
Contamination is absolutely a problem. So we as residents are contributing to this grand challenge in recycling right now. Contamination is enough of a problem that it's not only causing us to pay, but causing us to pay a lot.
As of August, Surprise decided to suspend its program because of this reason. But before that, the cost of recycling was already getting expensive when China imposed bans on plastic waste in 2018. A recent study published in Science Advances says nearly half of all of the imported plastic waste globally since 1988 will be displaced by 2030. That's equivalent to about 111 million metric tons.
They're expecting to get this, this delivery of plastic, and they get a bunch of trash mixed in, it becomes a problem. And why would they want to keep buying it if then it takes extra manpower and extra hours to be able to separate all that stuff out and then move on with the recycling process?
What was one problem has now evolved into two. Because China was receiving contaminated plastic waste, this has now created a much larger surplus here domestically.
It's hard to argue with the economics for some cities and towns that are small, that don't have resources. It's a big bite out of the budget now. We used to make about $600,000 off of our recycling, and now we lose about $500,000. It's $1 million swing.
Lauren Kuby with the city of Tempe says the city is struggling to keep its recycling program alive. So far, 4 cities in Arizona have suspended their programs completely, and several others are making huge cuts.
I moved here when I was 3, so my entire life I've been here. It's always been a thing of we separate the recyclables, that kind of thing, and put them in the recycling bin, and it's just always been the norm for me, basically. And to have to throw them away now, it's just so odd. I know they say to keep separating them, but we haven't done that.
One of the advantages of pushing pause, like what we did, is this grabbed residents' attention. And so on social media and in person, residents are saying, what can we do to get recycling back? What can we do to make it work?
So for now, residents of Surprise can drop off their recycling at the Northwest Regional Landfill on Saturday mornings, and that's where it will be processed in a material recovery facility. Gent says until cost-effective solutions are identified, check with your city's website for information on what you can and cannot go in your curbside bin.
If I could explain 3 things, it's don't throw any plastic bags or any wrappables, we call them. If you are using a recycling container, make sure that you put your recyclables in loose, and try to use the internet to educate yourself on the items that are best being recycled right now.
In Surprise, Arizona, Jordan Evans, Cronkite News.
While communities look at the future of how to make recycling work, some cities like Tucson have cut back programs. That city has moved pickup recycling every other week instead of weekly.
Right now, a disease that can be deadly to dogs and spread to humans is on the rise in the western United States, including here in Arizona. It's called leptospirosis. The CDC says it's spread through the urine of infected animals. It typically gets into water or soil where other animals can come into contact, becoming infected. The signs of leptospirosis for people are similar to the flu or a stomach bug. Antibiotics can clear it up for humans. The same goes for dogs if it's caught in time, but cats are not at risk. Coming up, we're just 15 days away from Halloween.
So can you expect a treat when it comes to the temperatures this week? We'll have your full 7-day forecast, plus we'll show you why people are falling in love with the high country right now.
Cronkite Noticias is the Spanish-speaking division of Cronkite News, covering topics such as economics, education, sustainability, immigration, and border relations. Cronkite Noticias strives to serve the Spanish-speaking community in Arizona. Under the guidance of prominent Spanish-speaking professionals, students at the Walter Cronkite School of Journalism develop content for our broadcast partner, Univision, as well as on Facebook and Twitter. Explore Cronkite Noticias at cronkitenoticias.azpbs.org.
Welcome to another edition of Cronkite Sports Now. I'm Taylor Rocha. Let's talk sports.
For the latest on local sports and beyond, we've got you covered.
Let's do this thing.
We challenge reporters to go beyond, a game story. We want stories with depth.
It's just a crucial step from the college experience into the professional experience while you're still in school.
At Cronkite Sports Now, watch the journalists of tomorrow cover sports today.
You may think Arizona doesn't have 4 distinct seasons, but if you head up north, you can find gorgeous fall foliage. This video was taken at Lockett Meadow near Flagstaff earlier in the week by our very own drone pilot, Jordan Evans. If you want to catch all of the colors of the seasons, you better plan a trip soon. Once the temps tumble, you'll only be able to enjoy winter white. The city of Flagstaff even has its own leafometer on their website to check the changing fall colors throughout autumn.
So Quentin, will we see any changes in the seasons this upcoming week with our weather?
Not necessarily here in Phoenix, but up in Flagstaff for sure. We see some beautiful colors of those leaves changing. I'll show you those temperatures, but first let's take a look at your planner for this evening. 5 p.m. we're currently at 94 degrees and your sunset for tonight is scheduled for 5:53 p.m. So that puts us into overnight hours by 6 p.m., going down to 83 by 10 o'clock. So it should be a great evening for whatever your evening plans are. Taking a look at your low temperatures for tomorrow, 66 in Phoenix, then about the low 50s, high 40s in Sedona, Payson, and Prescott. That's where we're getting those leaves changing colors right there. So if you want to see some beautiful fall weather, you want to drive up there. But we do have some warm temperatures as well. Don't be fooled. 95 tomorrow in Phoenix, then the mid 70s around Sedona. So again, a perfect opportunity to go up and get a taste of a bit of a different season for you. Taking a look at your forecast for this week, your average high is in the upper 80s and your average low about 60 degrees, so not too bad. We have bright, clear, sunny skies moving us all the way through next week to Wednesday, so really not too bad. Not too much going on, as my parents would say, not mad, a little disappointed because we do have some 90s right there, but should be a pretty good week for us. From the Cronkite Weather Center, I'm Quentin Walker.
Thanks, Quentin. Coming up next on Cronkite News at 5, promoting PE in school.
We'll show you how One Valley School is doing just that with a brand new playground.
With wildfires, a scarcity of water, and other environmental issues facing the Earth today, it's critical to stay up to date with local impacts of a changing climate. That's why we created Elemental, covering sustainability, a multimedia collaboration between public television and radio stations. From climate change to water conservation to renewable energy and much more, Elemental covers the latest in sustainability news. Find our stories on our website, elementalreports.com.
Millions of people die every year from drinking dirty water. I would never have felt I had the ability to do something without ASU pushing me. We built filtration systems out of local materials with the people. To see those kids drink clean water for the first time, it's the most rewarding feeling that you can ever have. I went to ASU because I wanted to change the world. The thing I never would have expected is how the world would have changed me.
One Valley School is home to a brand new playground thanks to volunteers and a big donation.
Cronkite News reporter Rio Painter shows us around.
Students at Palm Lane Elementary School in Phoenix never had the option to play on a full playground. Before today, there was a small slide and a few swings. With over 40 volunteers, United Healthcare and Fiesta Bowl Charities worked together to bring a new playground to the school and some other improvements.
Here at Palm Lane, we're doing some landscaping projects. We're laying new rock, fresh plants. We're doing some painting projects in the hallways and the bathrooms, but just some things for the kids to kind of notice and maybe brighten their day and see something new.
Last year, faculty and students were ecstatic to learn that they were getting a new playground.
That our students get the opportunity to have a new playground added to our school, because not only do we promote academics here, but we also promote physical education, and it's really important that our kids have the opportunity to exercise and play.
Students can now enjoy the landscape that has been added along with the challenge course every day during recess. In Phoenix, Rio Painter, Cronkite News.
So far this year, Fiesta Bowl charities have donated more than $3 million to community projects.
Cronkite News is proud to be the news division of Arizona PBS. Here's what's coming up on Arizona Horizon and PBS NewsHour.
On the next Arizona Horizon, the U.S. Supreme Court begins its new session. We'll look at some of the cases the court has agreed to review, including a capital punishment case from Arizona. A Supreme Court review on the next Arizona Horizon.
I'm Judy Woodruff. Tonight on the NewsHour, Congress returns and ramps up the impeachment inquiry. We have the latest coming up after Cronkite News and Arizona Horizon on Arizona PBS.
That's it for Cronkite News tonight. Thanks for joining us.
For top Arizona stories anytime, go to cronkitenews.azpbs.org.